Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about acknowledging the importance of D&D Beyond and acknowledging that you really can't play Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition without D&D Beyond now. It's a huge change, and I think we have to talk about it, right? All right, so I love the physical books, and increasingly, I am keeping my characters on physical medium. I used to use a piece of paper, right? You know where I keep my characters now? I keep them on Magic the Gathering cards, right? And so that I can kind of sort through them. I can focus on different parts at different times. I'm very analog. I'm very physical, right? But I have been shown the error of my ways, right? And that is D&D 5e cannot be played without D&D Beyond, right? So why do I say this? Well, first of all, Gary Gygax's legacy is carried on D&D Beyond now, right? So Gary Gygax chose Donald Bloom, right? Donald Bloom created Vecna. You know where you can find out about Vecna? You want to know the latest thing about Vecna? You want to know about Vecna today? You want to be relevant and have an understanding of Vecna? You're going to find it on D&D Beyond. That's where the hottest communication, the most relevant conversations are happening about Vecna today. D&D Beyond. You cannot find it in a printed book, right? So if you want to embrace Gary's legacy and see this wonderful monster that Gary's hand-picked game designer Donald Bloom created, you have to go to D&D Beyond. You have to go to 5e. If you want to honor Gary, you can't do that in Dungeons & Dragons 1e. You cannot do that in Dungeons & Dragons 2e. You cannot do that in Dungeons & Dragons 3e. You cannot do that in Dungeons & Dragons 4e the way Matthew Colville tried, right? If you want to honor Gary Gygax and see what the people he handpicked created for the game, you've got to go to D&D Beyond, right? It's not in any printed form. If you honor Gary Gygax, you have a D&D Beyond account because you cannot honor him without it, right? So, in addition to that, right, we just got the Radiant Citadel Chapter 1. You can run Radiant Citadel without the book now, right? So you get early access and you get all the access you need. You don't need to buy Radiant Citadel. Everybody can run Radiant Citadel today for nothing, right? You do not need the journeys through the Radiant Citadel. It'd be a nice to have, right? But you don't need it. You can run Radiant Citadel today, right? Like everything you need has been given to you, right? The most key aspects, the one that actually describes the Citadel itself, right? And tells you these are already established, but there's 12 literally placeholders for you to connect whatever world you want here. It's all there, right? And you need that done. And the thing is, you're going to be late to the party if you don't have D&D Beyond, right? Now, the nice thing is D&D Beyond is free. You don't have to pay a single dime. That very much honors Gary Gygax, right? He wanted Dungeons & Dragons to be accessible to everyone, right? Now, I think the reason why he didn't have a free version to begin with was people don't value free things. A lot of people have learned this now. If you give things away, people won't value them. They just did this horrifying study. I'm not kidding. I just learned about this on Slate Biblical Gabfest. They just did a study where they gave poor people nothing, $500 or $2,000. Guess what they found out? Your life is either unchanged or made worse by the money. That is a terrifying truth that just came out of this, out of this study, right? But we are definitely in this situation where we cannot. We're dungeon masters. We cannot look away from truth. We just don't have the privilege of sticking our heads in the sand and not paying attention to modern life. Gary was like, you have like 12 different disciplines that others spend a lifetime mastering that you have to master just to create your worlds, right? And Gary always, from the grave, his legacy calls us to more, right? So for early access and for everything you need to run entire settings, you must have D&D Beyond, right? And this is another issue is Gary was always, he always wanted to push the game farther, right? So he had created the game, he had built the game. You know where he went in 1983? He went to Hollywood to give the game the next expanse, the next frontier. I don't like that I need to go to a website in order to be fully engaged with Gary Gygax's legacy. I don't like it, but it's the truth, right? And that's another one of the reasons why I believe what I believe is, as dungeon masters, we do not get to choose the truths we like and forget the ones we don't. We must embrace all information that comes in front of us, and we must seek out more information. We cannot be marinated in ignorance the way the rest of the world can. We are called to more as dungeon masters, right? So you have the Journey of the Radiant Citadel. You have Vecna, right? The other thing is just sheer frugality demands us to go to D&D Beyond. I do not own Acquisitions Incorporated, right? I don't own that physical book, but I do own it now on. I actually own the Acquisitions Incorporated book. I own it on D&D Beyond, and the reason why is they gave it to me for free, right? And that also is Gary's legacy, is taking things that are valuable and giving them to the world, right? For nothing. That was Gary's legacy. And that's another reason why he went to Hollywood and said, Dungeons & Dragons cannot simply exist as a game, right? Because it takes money to print that game, right? But I want Dungeons & Dragons to be in everyone's life. And so he made the Saturday morning 1980s cartoon, and people got it for free. So D&D Beyond, giving away entire books, upholds Gary's legacy. Gary Gygax's legacy is held nowhere, most prominently, most importantly, on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. You will no longer find it in the dusty tomes of 1E, 2E, 3E, and 4E. Gary's legacy is now. Gary's legacy is forever. And right now, you will find Gary's legacy all over Dungeons & Dragons Beyond. And I don't like the new reality, but you cannot honor Gary Gygax today without a D&D Beyond membership. It's just and the reason, and the thing is, it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable. And that was always what Gary was saying. He's like, I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here to craft humanity, right? Into a bigger, better, badder humanity, right? And that's what he did. He pushed us from 1974 to 1986 in a way that was unprecedented, right? It was the most productive 12 years of any human on the planet ever. It reforged narrative, and it gave a meaningful, free path for everyone to make themselves better, right? In my humble opinion. And now, in 2022, from the grave, Gary Gygax shouts through D&D Beyond. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.